Today we're starting Maimer, a Hemshech, a Kuntreis, called Kuntreis Umayan, which is one of the classic Chabad chassidus works. It's from the Rebbe Rashab. It probably has more musar than any musar sefer. I've learned a little bit of Mesilas Yesharim. I don't know, maybe Timur Devar is more, but it has a fair amount of musar. But it's in chassidus in general, people get very scared. I mean, when I say in chassidus, I mean chassidim in general get very scared when someone starts giving musar. But the big chassidim don't mind that. Why don't they? Why they get scared? And they'll say because the way of chassidus is not the way of musar, and chas v'shalom that I could be doing something wrong. They don't say that chas v'shalom I could be doing something wrong, but they think
what's musar?
Musar means rebuke. It's a whole movement in Judaism that existed. Whether it existed to counter chassidus more, or if it was something that was around more, and then it just became more prevalent as under the flag of this is the musar movement. I'm not sure about, and I'm sure that people could talk about it, but ultimately, it's something that a lot of chassidim are afraid about. They don't want to get rebuked, and it's not dafka because of the chassidim part. It's more like because they're afraid of hearing things about themselves that they might not want to hear. The big chassidim, you have a lot of stories with big chassidim getting musar from their friends, and when I say getting musar, I mean that like their friends literally told them off personally for things that they were doing, and they took it in stride, or they cried about whatever it is that was wrong. You have a classic story with Reb Pinchas Reizes, who was very, very wealthy, and he had a friend named Shmuel Munkus, who was known to have a very good sense of humor. So once Shmuel was in town, and he was coming from the Alter Rebbe, and he went to his friend Reb Pinchas' house. So he went in. Reb Pinchas' wife, greeted him, and he was very dirty. And she said, "Just go to one of the rooms and find a bed and lie down." So he went. He wanted to test his friend in a sense. So he went to Reb Pinchas' master bedroom, the room where he slept with his wife, and with all of the dirt on him, he was wearing he just traveled in Russia, maybe in the wintertime, very muddy, very dirty, with all of his dirty clothes. He laid down with his boots, everything on the bed, and as you can imagine, it was precious sheets, and very, very fine imported, I don't know, Italian, whatever it is, whatever the best sheets there were in Russia, Reb Pinchas probably had them, and Reb Pinchas' wife noticed he was in the bed, and she wanted to kill him, but she knows killing isn't avera, so she complained to her husband instead. So her husband, when Reb Shmuel woke up, Reb Shmuel said, "Hi, how are you?" He said, "I'm good, Baruch Hashem." He said, "Maybe in the future, if you come to the house, you shouldn't go into the master bedroom with all of your dirty clothes on and lay down on the sheets." And he said it nicely and kindly, and Reb Shmuel said, you're a bore. I came from the Rebbe. The first thing you're worried about is your imported sheets, and you're not worried about what I heard from the Rebbe. Mm. And Reb Pinchas said, "I realize you're right. That should have been my initial reaction. I got caught up in the gashmias. Tell me, what do you think I could do to improve myself?" So he said, "Take a broom and put it between your legs and run around the town and pretend that it's a horse. And because that's what the kids do. And if you do that, people will see, what's this Greer doing? He's in town, he must have lost his mind. It'll let you let go of the gashmis a little bit." And that's what he did.
Wow.
So
That's it.
Yeah, he went out. One of the greatest chassidim. He has, a lot of. I think he wrote chassidus himself, and he went out into the town square with a broom between his legs, saying "Giddy up, mamish." So the moral of the story, and the reason it's a funny story to start the shir with, it takes time, but it's important to appreciate. Firstly, the Rebbe Rashab is talking to you individually. Whatever he's saying, something that you should take to heart. It doesn't have the same effect as mamish someone calling you out by name, but it's still important. And the second thing is that constructive criticism is constructive, and it's important to recognize if it's coming from a good place. Sometimes it's not coming from a good place, but if it's coming from a good place, it's important to take it to heart and to appreciate it. And this is not something that's removed from chassidus. This is something that chassidus very much values. The only thing is, sometimes it's not done in the right way, and chassidus will tell people that you shouldn't say musar if it's in the wrong way. Right. If you're doing it only because you're selfish and like you're bothered by the other person's thing, and you're not trying to help him, you just want to help yourself. Maybe the thing is bothering you or whatever, but if you're trying to help yourself, that's not a good thing. If you're not doing it purely for the other guy's good, it's not a good thing. And these are things that are more directed at the person giving musar, but it's not an excuse for the person that needs change. It's not an excuse for him to say, well, seeing as you did it in the wrong way, I shouldn't take it to heart. So
there's a big thing about people talking during Kaddish as well. Like it's not allowed, but people do it.
Yeah.
And I heard that that's a big thing. Like you have to rebuke people about that.
Yeah. When I was actually on two occasions. Once when I was significantly younger than I am now. I'm not that old, but significantly younger than I am now. In a certain shul in Crown Heights, they asked me to speak on a Shabbos, an Elul. So I said, look, I can speak, but I don't know if you're going to like what I have to say. So they said, okay, and I got up there, and I davened in that shul a few times before that, and I spoke about the talking that they had in the middle of davening, and I made sure to only quote word for word quotes from the Rebbe, because I didn't want anyone to get on my case about giving musar. And I said that in advance, and yeah, people got on my case for giving musar. Baruch Hashem, a year after that, I was talking to someone. Whenever, someone sits at your table in shul, you say hi, you say, how are you? And you ask, what are you learning? So I asked him what he's learning, and he said what he's learning. And he shul did you give a speech in this shul on this and this date, a while back? And I said, yeah, why? And he said, you should know since that speech, I've never spoken in shul again. Which is, it's a good feeling for all of the hate that I got. But the point is that, if that's something that's an example, people don't like to hear it. People don't like to think, but it's important. And I'll say l'idach so as chatani ani mazkar, but I'm saying it for the example so that you can know. There was once that someone that is, I'm not going to say like a very respectable figure in Chabad, but someone that's respectable enough, that I was in shul with him, and he was talking in the middle of Kaddish, and after davening, I went over to him, and I said all of the wagons of punishment that Eliyahu Hanavi has isn't enough. And I said it, and I didn't want to say, because it was still in public a shtickle, I didn't want to say, I wanted to just allude to him. But Baruch Hashem, he took it in a good way, and I say this to his credit, because I don't think that I necessarily said it in the right way, because I wasn't necessarily thinking, I want to help him. I was thinking, I talking that there could be someone that's like this big in the Lubavitch that spoke in the middle of Kaddish. So as far as what I did, I said it in the wrong way. Baruch Hashem, he took it in the right way, and he said, I really shouldn't have, and you're right. But that wasn't something that necessarily I in a sense got away with that.
How did you feel at the moment when you were saying it? Did you feel angry? Did you feel agitated? Or?
I definitely felt nervous because I thought he would bite my head off.
What I'm saying is, when he was interrupting, how did you feel at that time?
I felt disturbed, but I felt not, and this is in a sense what I'm trying to bring out. I felt disturbed that there would be a minion that he would be the one making an interruption. But I wasn't thinking that for him it's not a good thing to be making an interruption. I wasn't thinking about him. I was thinking about the general minion. Okay. And because I wasn't thinking about him, even though I told him something, whatever, I don't know if that was necessarily a good thing. Ultimately, I think that Hashem, helped and fixed the situation. But as far as what I did was wrong. So it's important to bear in mind all of these things. But these are all things that have to do with musar that you're maybe telling to someone else. The Rebbe Rashab, I'm sure, knew what he was doing when he wrote this. So, as far as what goes with the Rebbe Rashab, whatever the Rebbe Rashab says here, you can take it personally. Try to bring it into your lives. So, with that nice introduction, let's start. Kuntreis Umayan, Maimer Aleph, Perak Aleph, and he starts off with the pasuk Umayan beis Hashem Yasov.
You don't have the copies for it, right?
No, we don't. That's why we're waiting to get them from the place. Yeah. Okay. So, Umayin mibeis Hashem yatzav ishkas nachal hashitim. It's a pasuk in Yoel, which is one of the books that I don't know if people really get around to reading, but maybe if you're Friday on Shabbos Shuvah or something like that. I think Parshas, I think there was maybe I think just mainly started them on Shabbos Shuvah. So, but it says that a wellspring came from the house of Hashem, goes out, and it waters the valley of Shittim. So, Hine Medrash Rabbah, the Rebbe Shab says that in Medrash Rabbah, in Parshas Balak Parakaf, Mefarish Shittim Lashon Shtus. it explains that shittim is meloshin shtus. I'm sure we've heard this before. It was in the Basi Dagani Maimer. It's a very common thing in chassidus. Shtus means folly. If you want to give it a translation.
So this is the book that we are about to
This is the book that we're buying. That's why we're buying the book.
Okay.
So v'hinei b'sefer Shirashim b'sher shita, in the book of roots. It's a Hebrew grammatical book. In the book of roots, so it says that the root of the word shita, pirish shitim meloshin hataya. The explanation is shitim from a lashon of leaning. It says that is the book. Go ahead, follow along. Oh, okay. Yeah, follow along. Right at the beginning.
Is that big?
Yeah.
I thought it was a thinner book, like the Hasidic Heritage series.
No, this is a thick one.
Oh, I was thinking of a different book.
So yeah, Baruch Hashem, good catch. So it says shittim miloshin hataya. Shittim from a language of leaning, and it says in the pasuk kisishte ishte, that if a man's wife will lean, it says by the parsha of Seita. A Seita is called a Seita because Seita means that if a man's wife will be like a. It says the language of leaning. So Pirish Rashi kisishte teit midarche atznius. Rashi says that kisishte means that she leans from the path of tznius. V'targum al vayetilao, and the translation of the pasuk vayetilao, v'sata levasa, that he leaned towards her, or towards it. Val shem zeh nikra Yetzer Hara Satan. This is why the Satan, the Yetzer Hara, is called the Satan. Al shem that he tilts a person from the good path. And after that he prosecutes above and he leans towards prosecution. This is also what the Medrash means when it explains that shittim is meloshin shtus, which means folly. Because the concept of folly, it's leaning from the true path. We also find that Chachamim, they connected these two in Yanim. And as it says in the Gemara, on the pasuk, that when a man's wife will lean, will go astray, that a person will not do an avera until a spirit of folly enters them. So, leaning and folly are really one and the same. Because folly is leaning from the good and true path. And see what the Marashal says on that above quote from the Gemara. Well, the concept is when a person comes and he comes to pass over the way of Torah, and he wants to be drawn after the desires of his heart, to have enjoyment in mortal enjoyment, even in things which are permitted. Because when a person has enjoyment even from things which are mutar, but in mortal pleasures more than what's necessary to sustain his body, this is also passing over, and it's an avera from the ways of Torah. Every person has an obligation to sanctify themselves with what is permitted to them. As the chinuch writes, that it's mitzvah to say from the Torah that a person needs to have restraint in indulging in mortal pleasures. Similar to like what I said yesterday, there's a concept that chassidus just brought an emphasis on things which were already known before chassidus that for some reason just didn't get emphasized, and one of them is one of these things is the notion of kaddish asbachal b'motorlei, that you need to sanctify yourself with what's permitted to you, and as we're going to see in the next segment, I don't know if we're going to get there today, but we should. In the next segment, there's many different kinds of pleasure, and chassidus focuses a lot on bittul, And this inyan of bittul is really the only. Okay, I'm already like going way too.
What's bittul?
Bittul means nullification, but it's essentially that this is something that chassidus place an emphasis on. That things that are mutar, there's a line of chassidim. I'm going to translate it after. Vasman tarnit terminit and vasman meg darfminit. What you're not allowed to have, you're not allowed to have, and what you need, you don't need. Sorry. What you're allowed to, you don't need. So you don't need to indulge in everything just because it's mutar, just because you're not going to get punished for doing it. And adarab, it's a bittul mitzvah. I say, it is an avera to indulge in things unnecessarily. So the Rebbe Shab says that it's
More about physical pleasure, like between marital relations, or are you talking about?
It's talking about food. It's talking about food. It's talking about smells. It's talking about music. It's talking about everything.
Except for Torah.
In a sense, if you're learning Torah for the wrong reasons, like we said yesterday, if a person's learning Torah for the wrong reasons, then it's a horrible thing. It's much worse than this. That's not even getting into this. So v'lo huter rak mashru tzarich kiyum gufa, and what's allowed is only what you need to survive. And even in this, a person shouldn't be drawn after the physical pleasure that is in the food. But rather that he should want to serve his creator with the power of this eating. Li is kavanah l'shem shemayim, and so too in everything, his kavanah needs to be l'shem shemayim. But when a person's ultimate goal is that he wants to have pleasure for his soul, and even more so when a person is indulging in things that aren't even necessary for sustenance, but it's rather just for the sake of pleasure and enjoyment. When he's drawn after this is passing from the way of Torah. And it's complete bad in that moment. As it says in Tanya. And the reason why he strays in this is because the Yetzer Hara tells him that it's good and that it's enjoyable. So the Yetzer Hara is leading him astray. As it says, by the sin of the tree of knowledge, that the woman saw that the tree is good for eating and that it's pleasurable to the eyes. And she took from its fruit and she ate it, and she also gave it to her husband and he ate it. So just to not terrify you, in case you're thinking that now you need to start throwing out all the wine, and besides for the 5% one that you make kiddush on, everything that they said over here is absolutely true. But an important thing also, I can't leave without saying this. An important thing also is mental health, and sometimes it's important to indulge yourself. But what matters is the ultimate purpose. The ultimate purpose of what you're doing. Some people they attack a chase after pleasure, and the only reason why they're doing something is because they care about the enjoyment that you get from that. It's important to appreciate that we're humans. We have brains. Brains work in funky ways, and that sometimes what you need to have taka pleasure. You need to do something only for the sake of the pleasure. But why should you be doing that? Why ultimately do you care about getting that kind of pleasure? To serve Hashem. And a similar concept that you have is pleasure on Shabbos. On Shabbos, it's actually very interesting. There's a whole chakir that I had in Hilchas Brachos. The Alter Rebbe says that eating bread is never a mitzvah. I mean, besides for matzah, he says that in general, eating bread is never a mitzvah. And therefore a person can't be made to someone else their chiyuv without eating bread themselves. So Alter Rebbe says, you might say Shabbos, it's a mitzvah to eat bread. So the Alter Rebbe said, no, Shabbos is not a mitzvah to eat bread. Shabbos, it's a mitzvah to have pleasure. The Chachamim said that if you're fine with having bread, then have bread. And even if you're not, try to make yourself fine.
If you get pleasure out of bread, like I do.
If you get pleasure out of bread, then adarab, it's a mitzvah to have bread on Shabbos. But the Alter Rebbe says a person can ultimately tell themselves and convince themselves so thoroughly that it's not pleasure to the point that it isn't pleasure. So if a person really, really wants, they never need to have bread on Shabbos, technically. And the reason being because if they really get it into their heads that they don't want to eat bread, then they won't want to eat bread. And because of that, it won't be pleasure for them. Not because they don't want it, but because it won't be pleasure for them, it's no longer a mitzvah. So Alter Rebbe says, really, there's never a solid mitzvah to eat bread on Shabbos.
Unless
So,
you put lots of salt on it, and then everyone loves it.
what?
Unless you put lots of salt on it, and then everyone
Unless you
loves
put olives into the dough, then everyone loves it. So this is a notion in Hilchos Shabbos. However, on Shabbos, it's a mitzvah to have einig. Even though a person could, whatever will arise to a person, if a person can convince themselves they don't like bread, I mean, if they have celiac, it's obvious they don't like bread. It's not referring to that. It's referring to someone that could be eating bread, but just doesn't want to. So, if a person can convince themselves they don't like bread, it's not that they can convince themselves they don't like anything. However, it's not that Shabbos comes and says, look, you have pleasures. What can we do about the fact that you have pleasures? There's nothing to be done. It's a horrible thing. And because of that, fine, we'll try to make it good once a week. No. Shabbos says it's a mitzvah to have pleasure. It's a mitzvah to have pleasure. And if a person doesn't have pleasure from eating bread, they're not fulfilling the mitzvah of Einik Shabbos by eating bread. Elamai. What it is that on Shabbos, it's a mitzvah to have pleasure. And the pleasure that you have should be l'shem shamayim. It's not, the Maimer isn't trying to say that that pleasure is something that's asur. It's coming to say that when you eat an apple, your first and foremost thing, your ultimate reason for eating the apple needs to be to serve Hashem. That's why when you eat the apple, you make a bracha by your creates, and you make a bracha chayna if the apple is big enough. So I haven't seen them here, but in America we have these tiny little apples. I don't know if you can make a bracha chayna on those. But if you eat the apple, you make a bracha shayna, maybe a bracha chayna, or maybe you make a bracha on the smell of the apple if you smell the apple, if it's a fragrant apple. And you're able to serve Hashem, and then you use the power that you get to serve Hashem. And if you're in a matzav where you need something to give you pleasure, because this is how we go through life, so we're all a bunch of, we're not in America, but we would say we're a bunch of Amerikanische Schokoladnikers, American like chocolate eaters or whatever it is. Like we're in this day and age, we're very spoiled in a sense, and while it is maybe an avodah to work towards not being so spoiled, it's also important that it's not a horrible thing to have pleasure if you're doing it for l'shem shamayim. So
Hungarians say that we're soda water.
We're soda water?
Yeah. We call soda water Hungarian champagne. And this generation, because of obviously what our ancestors, how difficult it was in the Eastern Europe.
Oh, I hear what you're saying.
We're soda water now. Life's so easy for us.
Yeah. No, it really is. So
we said that before, when we didn't have these luxuries, we couldn't get close to the Torah or to Hashem because we had difficulties providing for our families. But now it's the opposite. We provide too much, we have too many luxuries, and we forget about Hashem. Yeah,
too many luxuries is very much, and it's very important to find the balance, as the Rambam says in Mishnah Torah and Hilchos, that it's very important. It's hard to find the balance. It's difficult to find the balance, but there does need to be some balance of the material abundance and also of not being too much invested in it. I feel like the default for anyone that exists nowadays is just to have too much material abundance. Because even if a person is, living on a minimum wage salary or whatever it is, they still have running hot water, gas and or electric, a roof over their head that isn't going to break at the next hard rain. Although actually some roofs might. Like mine. That's why I realized it's not a good example. My roof didn't cave in. It had 1 or 2 leaks, which is
It just kept you up at night.
What?
It just kept you up at night.
It was right next to my bed, and it had I put something under it so for the water to drip. That's all beside the point. The point is that the amount of material luxuries that society has deemed necessary for a human as a basic right, the free healthcare, pasha. I mean, there's 50% taxes, but the free healthcare. The amount we're existing on one end of the spectrum of material abundance. There is at least some level that you need to at least wean yourself off of things. And lav dafka do you necessarily need to if the pleasure can give you a drive and a avodas Hashem. It's important to serve Hashem with every single faculty we have, and not to say that pleasure is something to be ignored. But ultimately, though, a very big mistake that people have made in the past is they chase after the pleasure, and they say that the pleasure is the ultimate thing. And even you've had some, we're going to discuss this tomorrow, but even so you've had a lot of philosophers that they thought that the ultimate is to develop the mind and philosophy. This is going back to the old Greek ones. And even that is still really chasing after pleasure. They're just too stupid to see it. So anyhow, tomorrow, B'ez Hashem.
Sure.